Yay for story time!
Alright, so I did such a bad job recording the first version of this video that I thought instead of trying to save it in editing, I would just take you here to my couch where my cat Needs on this blanket, though right now he's perched on the table, and talk to you about what I was trying to say the first time I made this. So I wanted to spend the next few weeks doing freaking awesome Fridays. We'll still have, fun and hang out, but I wanted to spend the next few weeks having what we can call story time. You can get some hot milk or goldfish
Or cheesy toast.
or whatever you want to do. I wanted to share with you guys the thing that inspired the record that I wrote and am recording in my home studio. I found this story, and I think I'm the only person who knew about it until now. So I had to do, it felt like translating, though it really wasn't in a different language, but I felt like I was translating it. I had to do some reconditioning and then get it turned into something kind of real. But it's ready now, and so I can finally share with you the thing that inspired the music that you're going to hear throughout the rest of this year. But I thought it would be really cool if I shared it with you a couple chapters at a time, and we did like our own little story time thing. So I've got the preface, which is the part that I wrote, just sets everything up. And I'll read that to you today. And then over the next several weeks, we'll have our freaking awesome Fridays, and I'll read this book with you. And then we'll upload the chapters that we've read to a website that I'll share. And you guys can read it on your own or share it or whatever. And then as time goes on, we'll get into the music that it inspired and everything. But the story is just really interesting, and I'm hoping that there's more to come, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So that's what's going to happen over the next couple weeks, and that's what's going to set up the rest of our year. So happy freaking awesome Friday, and here is the preface to Finding Our Faces, A Town at Sea. Oh, story time. Okay, here we go. Hello, my name is Xander, and right now, if you are curious, I'm sitting on a wire metal chair which shifts back and forth because of the uneven cobblestone street that is underneath it, watching the steam curl and billow out of a cup of hot coffee and chicory which is inches away from the notepad that I'm writing on. It smells earthy and dark, as coffee is prone to, but even earthier and darker because of the chicory. There are mellow sounds of trumpet and tuba rolling off the buildings behind me and fighting across the noise of a busy street to get to my ears and tell me about their journey, difficult and long, from the bandstand to this cafe. It is the place where I found this little story. A small black boy whose steps clicked like a pen when he walked because he had tied tomato soup can tops to his tennis shoes stopped me as I was passing by so that he could show me something. As you would guess, I was very hesitant, but he continued to insist that it was important I see this. I followed Joseph, that was the boy's name, into a little alleyway where he and his 3 friends would split up the day's earnings and go over the plans for tomorrow. He motioned for me to follow him under a tarp tent they had made, his dark eyes shimmering and reflecting the sunlight as he turned to enter. When I lifted the tarp that stood in place of a door, I noticed that on the cobblestone walkway was a pallet made from blankets and towels, and square in the middle was a very strange-looking book. It was dark blue with swirling patterns all over it and an inscription on the spine that I did not understand. It had a swelling light in the center, and Joseph said it had appeared today when he went into the tent, and he ran out and stopped the first person he saw, who just happened to be me, to try and get help opening it. I opened it in the hopes of finding some address, name, initials, anything. The overcast sky shed little light in that dark alleyway, but I could just make out what was written, and that is what you have here. I have made no attempts to alter or clarify, but sitting there in an alley in New Orleans, I stopped hearing the music, stopped feeling the breeze, stopped noticing the rushed steps of passerby, stopped hearing the words that Joseph was telling me, and was taken totally captive by this story. I toted it around for weeks afterwards, mulling over its pages. In it are a few things that are difficult to understand, but take time and move slowly through it. It will not do you any harm. I cannot say where it came from because I do not know. Some place called Karain, apparently. It is worth noting that there are a few differences that are never put in clear terms because this document seems to have never been intended to reach Earth. Not by the author, at least. Descriptions of certain items and not others makes me think that it was intended for some race other than the race of the writer, who is presumably a Pish, whatever cat-like humanoid alien that amounts to. Those differences are primarily the following. The individuals in the story appear to be inside some planet called Karain, for reasons I do not know, but must assume are related to the Great Migration that is referenced repeatedly and with the reverence that is typically attributed to important historical events. Additionally, there appears to be no month or year because they are in perpetual light of the planet's core, or some other bioluminescent light source, and therefore must measure time by their own habits of rest and waking, which they have divided into 2 lumen hours, which make up their day and night and subsequent hours and minutes, which loosely represent what you know. This is the story, Finding Our Faces. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you next week.